Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
The concept of an anti-vision is the practice of defining your future by first identifying exactly what you do not want to happen. It is much easier for the human brain to move away from a threat than it is to move toward a vague reward, so you must list down every single outcome, habit, and personality trait that you refuse to accept in your ideal life. This is the foundation of cold ambition, because it provides a clear boundary for your behavior and a constant reason to stay disciplined. By acknowledging the versions of yourself that you find repulsive, you create a psychological safety net that catches you whenever you start to drift toward laziness. Take a moment to write down the traits of the person you would be ashamed to become, as this list will serve as your primary motivation. Imagine yourself in the future, having failed to take any action, standing in a room full of people who achieved exactly what you once desired. This version of you is filled with a heavy and silent regret that colors every thought and every interaction you have with the world. You have spent your best years playing it safe and avoiding the very risks that would have made you a person of true substance and character. This person has a weak spirit and a mind that is easily influenced by the latest trends or the loudest voices in the media. When you see this image of a hollow life, it should make you feel a deep sense of urgency to get back to work immediately. You must use this fear of a wasted existence as a tool to sharpen your focus and harden your resolve. Living without financial freedom is a state of constant anxiety that limits your ability to speak your mind or help the people you love. You must visualize the person who is always worried about money and who must compromise their values just to keep a roof over their head. This individual is a slave to their debts and to the people who sign their paychecks, leaving them with no real power to shape their own destiny. They cannot afford to take a month off to think or to start a project that truly matters to them because they are trapped in a cycle of survival. By listing this dependency as a core part of your anti-vision, you find the drive to master the skills of wealth creation and management. You must ensure that you are never in a position where your voice can be silenced by a lack of resources. The loss of physical strength and mental clarity is a slow decay that can turn your life into a prison before you even realize it has happened. You must imagine a future where you are constantly tired and your brain feels like it is moving through a thick fog every single hour. This person has allowed their body to become soft through a lack of movement and a diet of processed garbage that steals their energy. They no longer have the sharp edge required to solve complex problems or to lead others through difficult times. By refusing to let your health decline, you are protecting the very vehicle that allows you to execute your grand designs on the world. A sharp mind requires a strong body to host it, and you must never settle for a version of yourself that is physically incapable. Consider the danger of being surrounded by a social circle that encourages you to be average and mocks you for wanting more from life. This version of your existence is spent in small rooms with people who complain about their problems but never do anything to solve them. These individuals are comfortable in their mediocrity, and they will try to pull you back whenever they see you trying to climb higher. They offer you the false warmth of acceptance in exchange for your silence and your surrender to a life of the lowest common denominator. You must list this type of environment as a toxic zone that you will never allow yourself to inhabit for any length of time. True growth requires the cold air of high expectations and the company of those who are also striving for excellence. A life that is reactive rather than proactive is a life that is lived on someone else's terms and for someone else's benefit. You should picture the person who wakes up and immediately checks their phone to see what the world wants from them today. This individual has no plan of their own and is constantly jumping from one minor emergency to the next without making any real progress. They are like a leaf in the wind, moving wherever the current of social pressure or workplace demands happens to push them. By defining this lack of agency as a failure, you reclaim the right to set your own agenda and to follow it with absolute precision. You must be the one who decides what is important and what deserves your limited time and energy. Arrogance is a trap that often catches those who have achieved a small amount of success but have not yet reached true mastery. You must visualize the person who thinks they know everything and has stopped listening to the feedback that could make them even better. This individual is stuck in a loop of their own past achievements, unaware that the world is moving forward without them. They have lost the humility that made them successful in the first place, and they are now blind to the threats that are closing in. By keeping this image of the stagnant expert in your mind, you remind yourself to stay a student of your craft forever. You must always be looking for the next piece of knowledge that will give you the edge over those who have become complacent. Emotional instability is a leak in your power that will eventually drain you of your ability to make sound and logical decisions. Imagine a version of yourself that is easily angered by strangers on the internet or who falls into a deep depression over a minor setback. This person is a victim of their own chemistry, and they lack the internal tools to remain calm when the stakes are high. They are unpredictable and unreliable, which makes them a liability to any team or any mission that requires steady leadership. By listing this volatility as something to avoid, you commit to the practice of emotional detachment and mental toughness. You must become the calm center of the storm that others look to when everything else is falling apart. The ultimate failure is a life that is lived for the moment and leaves no positive impact on the generations that come after you. You must loathe the idea of being a person who only takes from the world and never contributes anything of lasting value to the human story. This person's name will be forgotten within a week of their passing, because they did nothing to justify their place in the universe. They were a consumer of resources and a watcher of screens who never dared to build anything that would outlast their own physical body. This vision of insignificance is the most powerful motivator for anyone who wants to achieve a high level of status and influence. You must strive to create a legacy that acts as a beacon for others who are searching for their own path. Once you have established the dark blueprint of your anti-vision, the next phase of your transformation involves a relentless filtering process for every single action you take throughout the day. You must train your mind to view every choice through the lens of that failed version of yourself to ensure that you are actively moving away from that wretched state. Humans are biologically wired to respond more intensely to negative threats than to positive rewards, making this avoidance strategy a superior engine for long-term consistency and discipline. Every time you consider a shortcut or a moment of indulgence, you must ask yourself if that specific decision aligns with the person you have vowed never to become. This constant vigilance rewires your brain to associate comfort with danger and discipline with survival, creating a psychological barrier that protects your future from the slow erosion of mediocrity. Training your brain requires you to become a cold observer of your own impulses and to label them according to the damage they could potentially cause to your legacy. When you feel the urge to procrastinate on a vital task, you should immediately visualize the stagnant and unsuccessful version of yourself that thrives on such hesitation. By making the negative consequences of your inaction feel immediate and visceral, you strip away the temporary pleasure of the distraction and replace it with a healthy sense of productive fear. This is not about being pessimistic, but about being strategically aware of how small concessions eventually lead to a total collapse of your highest ambitions and personal standards. You are building a mental filter that automatically rejects any thought or behavior that does not contribute to the absolute destruction of your previous limitations and shortcomings. Every morning provides a fresh battlefield where you must decide whether to reinforce your progress or surrender to the gravity of your old, unrefined habits. You must look at your schedule and identify which tasks represent the path of growth and which represent the path of the anti-vision you have so carefully defined. If an activity makes you feel too comfortable or allows your mind to drift into a state of passive consumption, it must be treated as a direct threat to your sovereignty. The goal is to create a conditioned response where the mere thought of laziness or poor quality work triggers a feeling of intense discomfort and a desire for immediate correction. By staying focused on the negative outcome you are avoiding, you find a deep well of energy that lasts far longer than the fleeting excitement of a new and shiny goal. Consider the physical reality of your existence as the ultimate testing ground for this new method of filtering your daily movements and decisions. Every meal you consume and every hour of sleep you prioritize is either a brick in the wall of your fortress or a crack in your foundation. You must look at the food that numbs your focus and see it as the fuel for the sluggish and ineffective version of yourself that you have left behind. When you push through the pain of a difficult workout, you are explicitly rejecting the physical decay that characterizes the life of the person who has given up on their body. This physical discipline serves as a constant reminder that you are the master of your vessel and that you refuse to let your animal instincts dictate the trajectory of your professional or personal rise. In your social interactions, you must apply the same level of scrutiny to ensure that your environment does not become a breeding ground for the traits you despise. You must listen to the conversations around you and determine if the words being spoken are the words of the victims and the complainers who inhabit your anti-vision. If you find yourself nodding along to small-minded gossip or participating in the celebration of mediocrity, you are actively training your brain to accept a lower standard of existence. Filtering your actions means having the courage to walk away from social circles that offer nothing but the warmth of common failure and the safety of shared excuses. Your time is a sacred currency, and spending it with those who represent your anti-vision is a form of slow social suicide that you cannot afford to tolerate. The way you handle your finances must also be subjected to the rigorous filtering process of your new mental model to prevent the onset of economic fragility. Every unnecessary purchase should be viewed as a tether that ties you closer to the state of dependency and fear that defines a failed financial life. You must train your eyes to see past the immediate gratification of a luxury item and focus instead on the long-term freedom that comes from a position of absolute resource dominance. When you choose to invest in your skills or your assets, you are making a conscious move away from the person who is always worried about the next bill or the next paycheck. This financial discipline is the shield that allows you to operate with the cold ambition required to build a legacy that actually matters to the world. Mental focus is perhaps the most critical area where you must apply the filter of your anti-vision to protect the integrity of your strategic planning and execution. The modern world is designed to fragment your attention and keep you in a state of perpetual distraction that serves the interests of everyone but yourself. You must look at the endless scroll of social media and the noise of digital notifications as the tools of your own enslavement and intellectual decline. By choosing to engage in deep and solitary work, you are training your brain to function at a level that most people can no longer even imagine, let alone achieve. This rejection of the shallow and the trivial is what allows you to cultivate the rare insights and the complex skills that will eventually set you apart as a leader. In the modern era of constant digital bombardment, your ability to direct your attention is the only true superpower that remains within your control. You must realize that every notification and every infinite scroll is a calculated attempt to harvest your cognitive resources for the profit of distant corporations. When you allow your focus to be fragmented by these trivial interruptions, you are essentially forfeiting your capacity to think deeply or build anything of lasting significance. This erosion of your mental clarity makes it impossible to enter the high-level states of learning required to master complex systems or outpace your competition. You must reclaim your mind with a sense of absolute urgency, because a person who cannot control their attention is a person who can never truly own their destiny. The restoration of your attention span begins with a radical and uncompromising purge of the dopamine triggers that have hijacked your nervous system. Most people are trapped in a cycle of seeking instant gratification through short-form videos and social validation, which leaves their brains incapable of enduring the friction of real work. You must deliberately choose to engage in activities that offer no immediate reward, such as long-form reading or sitting in silence without a digital device. This process of detoxification is painful because it forces you to confront the boredom and the restlessness that you have been numbing for years. However, this discomfort is the sound of your neural pathways healing and your capacity for deep focus returning to its natural and powerful state. Without the ability to sustain your focus for hours at a time, you will never activate the profound state of learning that leads to genuine expertise. True mastery requires a level of cognitive immersion where the outside world fades away and you become one with the problem you are solving. If you are constantly checking your phone or switching between tabs, you are preventing your brain from forming the complex neural connections necessary for high-level breakthroughs. You must treat your study or work sessions as sacred rituals that cannot be violated by the noise of the mundane world. This commitment to depth over breadth is what allows a single individual to achieve in a month what others cannot finish in a decade of shallow effort. Staying present in the current moment is a tactical necessity rather than a vague spiritual ideal for those who wish to reach the top of their field. When your mind is wandering toward the failures of the past or the anxieties of the future, you are leaking the energy required for the task at hand. You must train yourself to bring your full awareness to every action, whether you are analyzing a financial report or engaging in a high-stakes negotiation. This presence allows you to see details that others miss and to respond to changing circumstances with a level of precision that feels almost supernatural. By grounding yourself in the reality of the now, you eliminate the mental clutter that causes hesitation and errors in judgment. The modern world has created a generation of people who are physically present, but mentally absent, drifting through their lives in a state of semi-consciousness. You must refuse to join this ranks of the walking dead and instead cultivate a mind that is as sharp and focused as a surgeon's blade. This requires you to set strict boundaries around your digital consumption and to create an environment that actively supports your need for concentration. You should view every distraction as a direct insult to your ambition and a threat to the legacy you are trying to build with your limited time. When you protect your focus with this level of ferocity, you begin to operate on a different plane of existence than the distracted masses around you. Learning to stay present also means embracing the reality of physical sensations and environmental cues that most people ignore in favor of their digital screens. You must reconnect with the rhythm of your own breathing and the feeling of your feet on the ground to anchor your consciousness in the physical world. This grounding prevents you from being swept away by the storms of emotional drama and the artificial urgency of the internet. When you are fully present, you gain a sense of calm authority that commands respect and allows you to make decisions with a cold and objective clarity. This state of being is the foundation upon which all great achievements are built, because it allows for the total alignment of your will and your actions. The pursuit of a grand destiny requires more than just raw determination. It demands a calculated strategy of exploration to uncover where your true potential lies. You must select 2 or 3 specific domains that spark a genuine curiosity within your spirit and commit to them with a level of intensity that others reserve only for their primary careers. This selection process is not about finding a hobby, but about identifying potential pillars for your future legacy and testing their structural integrity through direct action. Without this phase of deliberate trial and error, you are merely guessing at who you are and what you are capable of achieving in this short life. By narrowing your focus to a few high-value areas, you create the mental space necessary to go deep enough to see if a path is worth pursuing for the long term. A 90-day window of experimentation is the optimal time frame to move past the initial frustration of being a beginner and reach a state of functional competence. Most people quit a new endeavor within the first 2 weeks because they cannot handle the ego, bruising reality of incompetence that accompanies any new skill. You must vow to stay the course for the full 3 months, regardless of how difficult or boring the process may feel in the middle of the journey. This duration is long enough to gather significant data about your natural aptitudes and short enough to ensure you do not waste years on a path that yields no fruit. During these 90 days, you are not just practicing a skill, you are auditing a potential version of your future self to see if it aligns with your highest values. Experimentation is the only mechanism through which you can truly find yourself, because identity is forged in the heat of action rather than the silence of contemplation. You cannot think your way into a new life. You must act your way into a new way of thinking by engaging with the physical and intellectual challenges of your chosen fields. Every hour you spend in the trenches of a new discipline provides a mirror that reflects your true character, revealing your patience, your creativity, and your ability to solve problems under pressure. If you remain stationary, you are merely a collection of unproven theories and untapped possibilities that will never manifest into a tangible reality. By testing different versions of your potential, you strip away the illusions of who you think you are and discover the bedrock of who you actually are. To improve your life, you must be willing to endure the messiness of being an amateur in multiple arenas simultaneously as you search for your competitive advantage. This stage of the process requires a cold and detached perspective where you treat your own efforts as data points in a larger experiment. You are looking for the intersection of what the world values, what you have a natural inclination for, and what can be sustained through your own internal discipline. If you find that one area brings you nothing but misery, and no measurable growth after a month of hard work, you do not despair. You simply record the result and continue your efforts in the other selected fields. This scientific approach to personal development removes the emotional weight of failure and replaces it with the objective pursuit of excellence. The cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of a failed experiment because the time you spend wondering, "What if?" can never be recovered. You must realize that every day you spend without a clear direction is a day that is being stolen from the person you are meant to become. Selecting 3 areas allows you to diversify your efforts so that your sense of progress is not tied to the success of a single pursuit. If one experiment stalls, another may be thriving, which keeps your momentum high and your mind focused on the reality of your ongoing transformation.